Q Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @CuneReview, that is @CuandReview. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cunereview.com. That is INFORMATION or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 3rd of December 2025 from the business section. Family buys historic Scottish hotel for full asking price. This article is by Brian Donnelly. A family has bought an historic Scottish hotel after the property generated high levels of interest. The 9-room hotel, that has an award-winning whisky bar, attracted offers from both domestic and international buyers. Drysdale and Company said the transaction marks a significant milestone for Poppy's Hotel in Callander. The agent said Poppy's Hotel, a well-established boutique property with a strong local reputation, has long been admired for its charm, character and enviable position at the heart of the Trossachs, benefiting from a high level of passing traffic, being on a major tourist route heading north from Stirling. The hotel generated high levels of interest from both domestic and international buyers. Following a focused marketing campaign, the hotel attracted multiple qualified inquiries before being secured by the Sears family, who will now take the reins as its new custodians. The agent said the family plans to make Poppy's, which was built in 1894, both their home and their new business venture, taking advantage of the popular tourist location. Stuart Drysdale, director of Drysdale and Company, said, "We're thrilled to have achieved a full asking price sale for Poppy's Hotel, especially given its long journey on the market with various agents. This deal reinforces the strength of the hospitality sector in Scotland for tourist-led locations and the continued demand for quality, well-run independent hotels. We wish the Sears family every success as they begin this exciting new chapter." Drysdale and Company said that despite the many challenges in the wider market, it continues to experience robust activity across the Scottish hotel and hospitality market, and it remains committed to delivering results for clients across the sector. Poppy's Hotel in Callander was sold for its full asking price of £675,000. That article was by Brian Donnelly, and I apologise for my croaky voice. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 3rd of December 2025 from the business section. Plan to build visitor centre at Scottish roadside lay-by. This article is by Brian Donnelly. Plans to build a tourist attraction at a Scottish roadside lay-by have been brought forward. People are to be given the chance to view the proposals for a visitor centre, cafe, shop and associated car and coach parking. The community can learn more about the planning application by Black Sheep Management Services at the iconic Glengarry Viewpoint in the Scottish Highlands at an event this week. The location of the proposed viewpoint development, currently a lay-by on the A87 road to Skye, will provide visitors with safe parking and a high level of service, including food, shopping and toilet facilities. This will support Highland Council's aims to improve roadside infrastructure for visitors, the developer said. In addition to this planning application, the Black Sheep Group has to date invested more than £75 million in the hospitality sector in the Highlands, making it one of the largest investors in the area and employing more than 170 people, it said. It also said, the development of Glengarry Viewpoint will provide visitors with the opportunity to not only to safely visit the viewpoint, but also to make use of the on-site facilities. As an integral element of the proposals, and is a dedicated space within the proposed visitor centre for local artisans to display and sell their products. It added, the viewpoint is particularly famous for its views stretching to the farthest reaches of Knoydart on the west coast, with beautiful mountain ranges, and from this angle Lochgarry appears to take on the shape of mainland Scotland. It said that trees will be cut as part of the development proposals, giving visitors access to this fabulous vista again. A drop-in event is being held on Thursday, December 4th, between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. at Glengarry Community Hall. A spokesperson for the developer added, concerns have been consistently raised over the years about litter, human faeces and general waste being dumped at the viewpoint, which is frequently used as an open-air toilet. By providing a managed facility, including toilets and litter collection, the proposed centre will address this, complementing the scenic setting while supporting local tourism. The proposed development is predicted to create 30 full-time and 20 part-time jobs. A spokesperson for Black Sheep Management Services said, the development of Glengarry Viewpoint will deliver meaningful investment in rural infrastructure with minimal environmental impact and enhance the visitor experience, boosting local spend. In addition to delivering a cleaner environment and addressing road safety issues, the development will also deliver local employment opportunities, both directly and via the supply chain. We're also providing local artisans with the opportunity to promote their wares in our visitor centre. We very much welcome the opportunity to engage with the local community on this, address their concerns and provide feedback. That article was by Brian Donnelly, and I apologise for my croaky voice. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday, the 3rd of December 2025, from the Voices section. Do we really want to bust net zero targets for AI cat pictures? This article is by Vicky Allen. Most of us know that artificial intelligence, AI, is using a hell of a lot of energy. It makes an enormous amount of electricity to keep our Google Maps going, or to generate glam videos of ourselves with immaculate hair, to operate our AI toothbrush, or to run our flirt bot, if that's where you're at. Around 7 watt-hours of electricity, in fact, are needed to create one image using the OpenAI image generator. And according to Time magazine, the first week after the tool was released, users created 700 million, consuming 5 gigawatts. Meanwhile, energy consumption to train GPT-4 last year was over 50 gigawatts. That's the electricity consumption of more than 5 Edinburghs. But generally, we don't think much about it as we merrily swipe and tap away, nor do we think about the massive rollout of data centres required to keep our data and AI dependency growing. Although I did find myself thinking about exactly that as I squandered a few moments and a few watts generating images of my cat, Pearl, flying with resplendent wings. I made 4 of them, which I guess would amount to 28 watt-hours. In total, across Scotland, according to the tech justice non-profit Foxglove, energy-hungry data centres, which would demand a minimum of 2,000 megawatts of electricity supply and as much as 3,000 megawatts, are already in the planning. That figure, Foxglove points out, is already equivalent to the total generation capacity of all of Scotland's offshore wind turbines in 2024, 2,971 megawatts, or the total output of the Torness and Hunterston B nuclear power stations, while both were still in operation. By the end of this year, it has been predicted half of data centre electricity use globally will be for AI. As Donald Campbell, Director of Advocacy at Foxglove, points out, the big boom in AI at the moment is what's driving the really big expansion in data centres that's happening. And there is a climate and environmental impact of this. On a very simple level, Campbell says, data centres use huge amounts of electricity. And if you're using huge amounts of electricity and drawing it from the grid, then it comes with climate emissions. Across the world, a data centre race is taking place. Strikingly, the UK government, which has designated data centres as nationally critical infrastructure, is so committed to the rollout of the centres that it has plans to cut electricity costs for Scottish data centre operators in the Central Belt. Data centres could see electricity prices cut by up to £24 per megawatt hour. Meanwhile, Kat Jones of Action to Protect Rural Scotland points out that across Scotland, householders struggle with bills. It is shocking, she says, that the UK government can reduce energy costs for data centres coming to Scotland, but cannot reduce energy costs for ordinary people who are struggling. We are in a cost of living crisis, and energy costs are especially acute for many people. Hearing that the UK government can lower these bills for data centres is a huge gut punch, especially as data centres are known to push up electricity costs for households due to their huge energy demands, which we see happening in Ireland and the US. Data centre developers, of course, have a more positive view. Giles Hanglin, CEO of Apertura, responded to the news. This proposal kills 3 birds with 1 stone. It will soak up green energy, which cannot otherwise get south. It will reduce constraint costs, which hit consumer bills. And it will help Scots' schemes compete toe-to-toe with rival projects worldwide. Scotland has a genuine opportunity to become a leader in the global AI race. Governments may not be fretting about AI, but many of their citizens are. A poll published earlier this year found that 2/3 of people in Great Britain said they were nervous about its deployment in products and services, and less than half trusted the UK government to regulate AI responsibly. Barely, it seems to me, a social get-together in my life goes by without some discussion of what it might mean for the world of work or human social interaction. Meanwhile, as I covered in a recent article, bafflingly, here in Scotland, data centres are written into the national planning framework as green data centres. And yet, there is no definition of that word green. Such facilities may be green, of course, if they use renewable energy. But if they are drawing electricity direct from the grid, that electricity will be the same shade of clean and dirty as all of ours. One of the biggest names in the technology has acknowledged that AI and energy are tied in their growth. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, creator of ChatGPT, has said the cost of AI will converge to the cost of energy. In the 2030s, he said, intelligence and energy, ideas and the ability to make ideas happen are going to become wildly abundant. But how abundant can our renewable energy really be? The idea that we can continue to grow energy use indefinitely, ever fueling a technology that only grows in its hunger, is one that ignores renewable generation's reliance on scarce minerals or its other impacts on land and nature. There is also the issue that if clean energy growth lags data center expansion globally, the world will simply burn more fossil fuels and send out more emissions. One projection from Loughborough University's Digital Decarb Design Group suggests that globally, if data consumption continues unabated, electricity demand driven by data could exceed global electricity production by 2023. Of course, AI can be helpful. There are many good things already which have come out of it. It can diagnose disease, prevent accidents, help us cut waste, streamline systems, even streamline the energy and material use by AI itself. But we only need to open our social media apps to see what much of it is actually doing. I do think my cat looks majestic in full flight, but she is far cuter sitting on the chair by me as I write. Do we really want to risk climate goals in order to just power up relentless AI video slop? That article was by Vicky Allen. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 3rd of December 2025, from the Voices section. Right, that's it. I am done with electric cars. Here's why. This article is by Carlos Alba. This month, our columnist Carlos Alba will make the final payment on an electric car, which he bought in an effort to help battle climate change. But he says the EV industry and government at every level appear to have done everything in their power to convince him he made the wrong choice. In eras of tumultuous change, history appears to get closer and closer, and for a number of reasons, 2021 now seems such a long time ago. Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister of a shell-shocked UK, still emerging from the COVID pandemic. Rangers were Scottish Premier League champions, if you can believe it, and we still had a thing called global warming. The latter was the reason why, in the final month of that year, I traded my dirty old diesel automatic for a shiny new Mercedes 250 EQA, a top-of-the-range example of the brave new generation of electric vehicles that was set to revolutionize the world of personal travel and help save the planet from destruction. As regular readers of these columns will know by now, my journey got off to a bad start and, not long thereafter, ground to a frustrating and inglorious halt. You will be aware that my investment did not turn me overnight into a zealous evangelizing convert to the EV cause, but rather, for the first time in my life, I became a grudging and frustrated Luddite. Some of you will be delighted to know that this will be the last time you will hear from me on the subject, because at the end of this month, I will make the final payment on the car. And while it is important to learn from your mistakes, I can take some comfort in knowing that in my often scathing criticism and cynicism about the entire EV enterprise, I was at least ahead of the curve. Over the past 48 months, every agency and organisation associated with my purchase has gone out of its way to convince me not to repeat it, culminating in the Chancellor's announcement last week that she will be taxing EVs, in some cases more heavily than vehicles powered by combustion engines. By penalising owners of EVs for their use rather than possession, the government is evidently disincentivising their purchase and, in doing so, deprioritising the battle to combat climate change. That is why, from January the 1st, I will be back behind the wheel of a dirty, polluting, retrograde, but dependable diesel. It was a crisp and bright day in early January when my son and I took possession of my first and, from here on, only electric car. The man from the dealership had driven it from the southwest of England in a little under 10 hours, with just one stop to recharge, he said. Perhaps he was lucky to have driven the car on its solitary day of efficient performance. Perhaps he was on hallucinatory drugs. Perhaps he was just embellishing the facts, as men from car dealerships often do. In any event, within days, it would become depressingly clear that between the public statements routinely made by the EV trade and the driven experience of EV owners, there is some considerable gap. The battery, when fully charged on my Mercedes, is around 230 miles, but the relationship between the mileage displayed and reality is much like that between a North Korean newsreader and their viewership. A return trip between Glasgow and Edinburgh that is a little over 100 miles, for example, accounts for the greater part of a full charge. The only long-distance trip that I ever used the car for was between Glasgow and Derby, which took 10 hours on the downward journey and 12 on the return leg, and involved multiple stops in obscure rural towns to recharge. After that experience, I resolved only to use the car for driving in the city. But even then, I had to contend with the lack of available charge points because, living in a tenement, I cannot install a home charger. Not long after I took possession of the car, Glasgow City Council changed its rules, meaning that EV drivers charging their cars at public chargers on the street and in car parks are no longer exempt from parking charges. Paying the £15 parking charge for the time necessary to charge my car on top of the £35 charge cost makes it substantially more expensive than driving a non-electric car. But it is the principle I object to most. It would be like fuel companies charging drivers a £15 levy just to stop at the petrol pump. Avoiding a parking fee every time I want to charge my car means I'm restricted to only 2 locations in the West End of Glasgow covered by my residence permit, and for the most part they are occupied by non-electric vehicles. I was rolling with the punches when arbitrarily Charge Place Scotland introduced a penalty fee of £40 if you exceed the time you spend at one of its charge points by more than 4 hours, out with 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. 4 hours is enough to add around 150 miles to my car, which in reality is well short of 100. There have been times, though, through necessity, that I have had to fully charge my car during the day at a non-local charge point for twice what it would have cost to fill my old diesel. So, farewell to my unlamented Mercedes EV. I will not miss the range anxiety, the disappearing miles, or the days and weeks that it has spent parked at the roadside unused simply because I have been unable to charge it. I will not miss the frequent arguments with drivers of non-electric vehicles parking at my local charge points, most memorably with a self-made individual in either the scrap metal or security industry, I forget which, who took the opportunity to educate me about how wealthy he was, and then threatened to have some of his men visit my home. When I failed to display an appropriately level of supplication, he told me that I was wide as F***, before eventually moving his high-performance substitute penis. But most of all, I will not miss governments at all levels telling me how important it is to combat climate change, and then doing everything in their power to encourage it. That article was by Carlos Alba, and I apologise for my croaky voice.
This is from the Herald on Thursday, 4th December 2025, from the News section. Scottish Power to invest £12 billion on grid in 1,400 jobs boost. By Josh Pizzuto-Pomako. A plan to invest £12 billion into Scotland's electricity grid and create 1,400 new jobs has been approved by the UK energy regulator. Scottish Power will undertake a major rewiring scheme across its network following the green light from Ofgem on Thursday. SP Energy Networks will build 12 new substations, upgrade 450 kilometres of circuits, reconduct 87 kilometres of overhead lines, and replace 35 kilometres of underground cable over the next 5 years. 2 subsea electrical superhighways will also be built in the North Sea. SP Energy Networks will double its workforce across central and southern Scotland, creating 1,400 new jobs and supporting another 11,000 jobs across Scotland. The investment will increase customer bills by £6.47 per year. However, the firm claims the upgrades could save customers as much as £167 per year by 2030. Nicola Connolly, CEO of SP Energy Networks, said, "We welcome Ofgem's final determination recognising the need for this historic investment in critical network infrastructure. Our record investment of almost £12 billion will unlock capacity in the grid and bring economic growth across our area of central and southern Scotland and beyond, whilst also bringing costs down for consumers by reducing network constraints." Connolly said the company is committed to securing a fair deal for network users. She noted, "Making this crucial investment now will drive a positive impact on stabilising and lowering consumer energy bills in the longer term, and it will achieve the UK's ambition to be a clean energy superpower, enhancing the security and resilience of our energy supplies." We will continue to engage with Ofgem to ensure a regulatory framework that incentivises the largest ever investment in the electricity grid and helps move the UK towards its climate targets. In total, electricity and gas investments totalling £28 billion were announced by Ofgem on Thursday. According to the regulator, £108 will be added to bills by 2031, £48 for gas and £60 for electricity. However, the investment will deliver significant savings of £80 compared to not expanding the grid. That's a difference of £28 or £2.80 each month. Jonathan Beerley, Ofgem CEO, said, "The funding announced today will keep Britain's energy network among the safest, most secure and resilient in the world. The investment will support the transition of new forms of energy and support new industrial customers to help drive economic growth and insulate us from volatile gas prices." That article was by Josh Pizzuto-Pomaco.
This article is from the Herald on Thursday the 4th of December 2025. It is found in the Voices section and the headline is "Australians are doing us all a favour by banning social media for kids." And the report is by Rebecca McQuillan. Governments around the world are grappling with how to protect children from online harm, but the Australians are going furthest with a ban on social media for under 16s. There's strong public support for a move like this in countries around the world, and if it works in Australia, the UK should follow suit, writes Herald columnist Rebecca McQuillan. Years ago, I remember a friend of mine, a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, telling me how much he hated the idea of banning things. The left always want to ban stuff, he would say, and though the intentions were good, it interfered with people's freedoms. This friend railed against the 2006 ban on smoking in public places, thundering about the nanny state. Later, however, he came round. Partly, this was because the ban was about smoking, and it was hard to argue smoking did anyone any good. But he also accepted that when it came to freedom of choice, the issue was not clear-cut. For one thing, non-smokers had never had a choice before about inhaling second-hand fag smoke, which clearly wasn't fair. But it went deeper than that. The indoor smoking ban prompted a debate about whether consumers who use potentially harmful products are exercising real free choice when they're being subjected to powerful marketing or social pressures. It made us ask ourselves, should responsibility for avoiding harmful products always rest entirely with the individual, or should the state sometimes intervene? In Scotland, we decided that the state had a role, but the controversy around bans never goes away, bubbling up every time the government restricts anything, from free plastic bags to happy hours to single-use vapes. And now Australia has provoked a humdinger of a row in relation to a ban on something decidedly 21st century, something parents, teachers and governments the world over are full of anxiety about: social media use by under 16s. As of next Wednesday, the country is bringing in a world-first ban on social media participation by under 16s, which will affect platforms like TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat and YouTube. Existing under 16 accounts will be closed. Should they be doing this? No, according to some, who argue that it's unconscionable overreach or that it's unworkable. The US-owned social media giants are not happy and have Trump in their corner. But much more persuasive are the arguments on the other side. Many governments are out of patience with social media giants for their failure to protect children properly. The online world burst upon all of us 20 years ago, and we just weren't prepared. This is the necessary next step in a much bigger effort to make it safer, particularly for kids. Australia's plucky Communications Minister, Annika Wells, has the backing of 3/4 of Australian voters in implementing the ban. And that's bringing to the fore another question. Who should get to decide the environment children grow up in? People themselves or big business? In the US, attempts in various forms to limit social media use by under-18s at state level have been halted or blocked by federal courts. Australia, of course, is constitutionally different. If the Australian government succeed here, they'll be striking a blow for people power in a world that increasingly feels as if it's organised to suit multinational companies. They'll also be setting a benchmark. With Australia showing what can be done, other countries will want to follow, the UK hopefully among them. It's obvious that younger teenagers lack the maturity to be able to cope with everything social media throws at them. Giving children unrestricted access to social media is like dumping them alone in the middle of a big scary city without showing them the way home. Kids who get excited about Disney Pixar movies can be confronted with people encouraging them to self-harm. Children who are icked out by how babies are made are viewing explicit pornography, often accidentally. Some are approached by other kids who turn out to be predatory adults. Social media provides a platform for bullying, but even if they escape all that, a feeling of not measuring up, I'm too fat, I don't have enough friends, is liable to be reinforced endlessly by viewing the curated and seemingly perfect lives of others. Children suffer anxiety and stop feeling relaxed even at home because social media is inescapable when it's always in your hand, your school bag or your bedside table. Sleep suffers. Violent or sexual content, cyberbullying, influencers selling unhealthy or antisocial philosophies, grooming, misinformation, suicide or self-harm promotion, catfishing, radicalising, influences, and just plain pressure to conform. It's all the bad stuff of the adult world. No child is better off with than without these things. The upsurge of mental health problems in childhood is not entirely explained by social media use, but the evidence suggests it's a huge factor. In the worst cases, children have taken their own lives. My own child is reaching the age where friends are starting to get phones. It's noticeable that nearly all parents providing phones do so on the strict understanding that social media is banned. There's been a step change, particularly in the last year or two. Parents don't want their kids on these sites, but we also know that even our strongest intentions usually start to falter when our children start arguing they're being left out, that the rules we've set to protect them in one way are causing them social problems in another. How much easier it would be if all kids were just banned from social media under 16. So, what Australia is doing will be keenly watched, but they haven't taken the easy path. Some lawyers argue it will unfairly restrict children's access to political activism. Others say the methods for rooting out underage users won't work, or argue it makes no sense to leave out gaming platforms like Roblox. Google was reportedly considering a legal challenge on behalf of YouTube, which it owns. Donald Trump hasn't opined yet, but give him time. Aussie officials have already been called to give evidence to Congress in the US. Ministers themselves say the reforms will evolve. They recognise that some kids will find a way round it, just as they do around bans on smoking and drinking. But will the lives of under-16s in Australia be worse once this ban is in place? That seems highly unlikely. No, they won't all be spilling out of their houses to climb trees as if it's 1985, but for many kids it will be a huge relief and make the world seem like a better place. Good luck to the Aussies. They're doing us all a favour. That report was by Rebecca McQuillan.
The Herald on the 5th of December and the news section. Why is the skint ScotGov dropping £150,000 on the Corinthian Club? By Marissa McWhirter. I've been very clear with the public that there are huge pressures on the public finances, so there could not be a call on the public finances for any financial support. First Minister John Swinney told PA News back in October 2024 when he was assuring us all that no way Jose would the country be whipping out the public purse to fund the Commonwealth Games. At this I sighed so deeply and dramatically that I sounded just like a white elephant. There will be no call on the public purse, and indeed there cannot be a call on the public purse by the agreement we have negotiated, he added. But this week, Health Secretary Neil Gray made a very poorly timed announcement that the public purse, thankfully so skinny it can easily be wriggled out from the tight belt around Scotland's trousers, had £150,000 in it for a Swiss athletes' hub in the merchant city. Scotland House will be taking over the Corinthian Club, where the Games come to Glasgow next year. Throughout the Games, the Corinthian will operate as a central hub for business engagement, private space for Team Scotland athletes and families, and a media centre. Unfortunately for Mr Gray, the news was released at nearly the exact same time as another story. The beloved Glasgow Film Theatre is expected to lose long-term funding support from the local authority's Glasgow Communities Fund, putting its Cinema for All initiatives at risk. My colleague Brian Ferguson has rightly pointed out the dreadful optics of a beloved cultural institution losing funding that equates to £125,000 per year, funded over 3 years, while a networking salon for the country's elite athletes, politicians and media folk is given the green light. Now, the government did help to fund Scotland House for Birmingham 2022, but the exact figure spent on it was not publicly disclosed, so there is a precedent. And the funding of Scotland House does not have anything to do with the Glasgow Communities Fund, which is also poised to reject long-term funding to other organisations like the Glasgow Science Centre and A Play, a Pie, a Pint, among others. Anyway, Scotland House is a lovely idea. I'm sure the soirees will be fabulous, and the Team Scotland Inner Circle will enjoy washing down bulging mouthfuls of Scotch ribeye with gulps of miso mai tai to maximise the economic opportunities and deliver a lasting legacy for Glasgow, of course. But did it have to be the Corinthian Club? Why wasn't this openly costed from the start? It is our money after all. I presume that the venue was chosen for its central location, its size, its extravagance, and its ability to serve food, and its rich history. The Corinthian is, however, owned by the controversial Scotsman Group. The Scotsman Group, formerly G1 Group, is a multi-million-pound hospitality machine owned by one of the country's wealthiest men, Stephen King. Must we line the pockets of such a company instead of investing this six-figure sum in an independent or publicly owned venue? Too bad the GFT is not suitable. Against the backdrop of a city with a nighttime economy on its knees and grassroots music venues fighting for their lives, as well as an arts and culture landscape that is getting cut up like a paper snowflake, surely this money could have gone somewhere other than the Scotsman Group. The hospitality sector has a long memory. I certainly will not forget when G1 Group was named and shamed for not paying minimum wage to almost 3,000 employees in 2015. Millionaire King's Hospitality Group was charging the poor workers for their own uniforms and training. At the time, a G1 spokesman said, on some occasions we've asked for our employees to make small contributions towards the cost of workwear or training to enhance their career performance. Minimum wage is barely a contribution to the cost of living anyway. After it was revealed that they underpaid staff by more than £45,000, G1 ceased the wage deductions. I also will not forget when G1 sacked scores of staff members during the pandemic in 2020. Staff members for the hospitality group were sent a letter by King that explained the company had lost more than £25 million in revenue due to lockdown, and the services would no longer be required from August 31. The furlough scheme had saved the employees once before, causing G1 to halt plans for redundancies. This time, however, despite being extended to October, Employers were required to pay a fifth of the contribution. G1 was not the only hospitality group to sack staff at this time, but as Scotland's largest hospitality group, the move ruffled feathers. The Scotsman Group is a hospitality giant with a precarious history when it comes to workers. The firm is ambitious, but does it prioritise profit or growth above everything else? Hospitality workers are a vital part of Glasgow's backbone, especially when a huge event is taking over the city. Good luck raking in the game's projected £150 million economic benefit without the people running the hotels, restaurants, bars, pubs and cafes. Nighttime economy work is precarious and hospitality businesses operate at razor-thin margins. The workers are often making minimum wage and on 0 hours contracts. The arts and culture sector also is struggling desperately. So needless to say, Mr Gray's Scotland House announcement was uncouth and poorly timed. I asked the Scottish Government to clarify why they allocated £150,000 of public funds to hire out the Corinthians for the Games. I asked them how this expenditure aligned with the Government's previous assurances that no public money will be spent hosting in the Games. I asked if alternate venues, including independent or charitable spaces in Glasgow, were considered for Scotland House, and if they were, why were they not selected? And I asked what measures were put in place to ensure value for money and transparency in this expenditure. Scottish Government spokesman said, "We are not providing direct financial support towards the delivery of the Commonwealth Games 2026. Funding provided towards supporting Team Scotland House ensures a prominent platform to showcase Scotland, enable international collaboration and engagement, and maximise wider business opportunities, including the impact of the projected £150 million economic benefit." They added, in partnership with the Commonwealth Games Scotland, we considered multiple venues across Glasgow. The Corinthians was assessed as the best based on several factors, including proximity to travel routes, security and space requirement. And that was by Marissa McWhirter. The Herald on the 5th of December and the news section. Man found dead within vehicle on M8 near Glasgow Airport by Morgan Carmichael. A man has been found dead on the M8 motorway. The man, 68, was found dead within the vehicle between junction 29 and 30. The road was closed around 8:52 p.m. and reopened around 2:36 a.m. according to Traffic Scotland. The death has been treated as unexplained, however there are not believed to be any suspicious circumstances. It's understood that the incident is being treated as a medical death. Police said that a report would be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal. Police Scotland spokesperson said around 7:50 p.m. on Thursday, December 4, 2025, a 68-year-old man was found dead within a vehicle on the M8 between junctions 29 and 30. His death is being treated as unexplained. However, there are not believed to be any suspicious circumstances. A report will be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal. That was by Morgan Carmichael.
From the Herald, Sunday, 7th of December 2025, Sports section. Andy Murray seemed ill-suited to retirement, but the opposite is true. By Susan Eaglestaff, sports writer. Retirement from professional sport is almost invariably a tricky experience for athletes. As an athlete, there's a rigid schedule, a definite purpose, daily goals, and the rush that comes with competing for their sport's most prestigious trophies on which to focus. And then with retirement, literally overnight, the schedule, purpose, goals, and rush all disappear. For this exact reason, many athletes struggle with retirement. It's so common to hear of athletes who suffer from mental health challenges in the aftermath of the retirement from sport, and the issues that stem from these challenges, that is no longer surprising to hear about an athlete being unable to adapt successfully to life after sport. Andy Murray is one of those athletes. Whilst his career was ongoing, I would have predicted would not take particularly well to retirement. The Scot who won Wimbledon twice and topped the world rankings during his career was one of the very best tennis players on the planet, in the greatest era the sport has ever seen. He was an astonishingly good tennis player, but he was an even better competitor. There are few people who have set foot on a tennis court who had a greater desire to win or a better work ethic than Murray. And it seemed during his career that retirement was something he desperately wanted to fend off for as long as possible. Despite a hip injury that almost everyone believed to be career-ending, Murray got himself a metal hip and promptly returned to elite-level tennis. He never scaled the heights that he had pre-injury, though, and indeed it was at times a shadow of his former self when he returned to court with the metal hip. There were many observers, myself included, who wondered why he continued to prolong his career, and when he was no longer anywhere near contending for major titles, it seemed that Murray was one of those athletes who just didn't want to retire. When retirement came after defeating the men's doubles at the Paris Olympics last summer, everyone with even a passing interest in Murray watched with curiosity about how the Scot would ease himself into retirement. With 4 young kids at home, it's always unlikely that Murray would struggle to fill his days, and his obvious love for golf was always going to take up significant portions of his time post-retirement. But having taken up a coaching post in Novak Djokovic's team just weeks after hanging up his racket, it only served to strengthen the presumption that Murray just wasn't made for retirement. That coaching partnership with Djokovic only lasted a matter of months, though, and for the latter half of this year, Murray had been a normal member of society. It's something that the Scot seemed extremely ill-suited to being. But the reality has been the complete opposite. As it turns out, Murray is one of the most content, happy and fulfilled ex-athletes I've ever seen. So many sports people find it almost impossible to adapt to a life that isn't filled with the regular adrenaline rushes that come from being a world-class athlete. Indeed, many athletes, following retirement, spend their lives trying to find something that fills the void created when they give up sport. It's exactly the reason why so many athletes attempt comebacks, almost all of which are ill-advised. It's because they cannot cope with a gap in their life that they had previously been filled by elite sport. Murray always seemed like someone who needs that competition to not just thrive, but survive. But it turns out he absolutely doesn't. The 38-year-old revealed this week in a wide-ranging and fascinating interview with a tennis podcast that he loves being retired. He doesn't miss in the slightest being a professional athlete. No longer are his days spent striving to be the best tennis player on the planet, but instead he plays golf, takes his daughters to their sports club and plays Monopoly with his son. As Murray pointed out, elite sport and elite competition are hard. This is something that's so often underestimated. Yes, the life of a professional athlete, particularly one who has millions of pounds in the bank, thousands of fans across the globe, and is playing in some of the most glamorous locations on the planet, is on the face of it at least an enviable one. But these parts are only a bit of it, only a tiny fraction of what being an elite athlete is all about. The majority of an athlete's life is taken up by hour upon hour of training, endless travelling and weeks or even months away from home. And that's before I even mention dealing with the pressure and stress of striving for results. It's exactly why, despite the fact Murray would like to go back and experience winning Wimbledon one more time, he doesn't miss being an athlete. Now we can go skiing and watch his daughter playing netball and basically do what he wants. None of this was possible during his playing days. It was so heartening to hear Murray talk so enthusiastically about his retirement. Much of his contentment is down to the fact that he's safe in the knowledge that he gave everything to his tennis career and doesn't have one single regret. And it's a great lesson to athletes that maybe retirement from sport isn't quite as scary as it's sometimes made out to be. And another thing, sticking with tennis, a bombshell was dropped this week when it was revealed that earlier this year, Serena Williams applied to be reinstated into tennis drug testing pool. A player is only eligible to compete if they've been in the drug testing pool for 6 months prior to the first match. And with Williams having retired in 2022, she's been out of the drug testing pool for quite some time. Her application to be reinstated certainly suggests she's pondering a comeback, despite the fact she's stated on social media that she's not. Whether we ever see her on court in a competitive sense again remains to be seen. A comeback doesn't seem to be the smartest idea. Women's tennis has moved on considerably since her retirement, and it seems unthinkable that she would be able to challenge the very best players in the women's game anymore. There will be interest in Serena Williams whenever she takes to the court, so if a comeback does transpire, it'll be a huge story. But I hope she doesn't. Nothing will tarnish what she's already accomplished in tennis, but it's impossible to see much good coming of her returning to the sport. That article was by Susan Eaglestaff. From the Herald, Sunday, 7th of December 2025, Sports section. Celtic 1, Hearts 2, instant reaction to the burning issues, by Matthew Lindsay, chief football writer. The magnitude of the task facing Wilfred Nancy at Celtic was driven home to the Frenchman at Parkhead this afternoon, when his side lost his opening game as manager to Hearts to fall 3 points behind the Tynecastle club in the William Hill Premiership table. The former Columbus Crew coach, a surprise choice to replace Brendan Rodgers, was given a rapturous reception by the home supporters in the packed stands when he emerged from the tunnel before the game against Derek McInnes's team, and he returned the applause. But the only fans clapping thereafter were wearing maroon. Claudio Braga put the Gorgie outfit ahead just before half-time, and Ocean McEntee added another in the second half. An injury-time Kieran Tierney's strike made no difference to the final outcome. Here are 5 talking points to arise from Nancy's difficult debut. Nancy Ball. Eyebrows were raised among the more perceptive members of the Celtic support pre-match when winger Yang Hung Young started warming up with the defenders. Was the South Korean going to play at right back? Surely not. But when play got underway, it became apparent that Nancy had switched to a back three, with Tierney, who was frequently being deployed at centre half for Scotland in the past, slotting in alongside Liam Scales and Austin Trusty. Sebastian Tunicki and Yang hugged the left and right touchlines respectively high up the pitch in a 3-4-3 formation. But when the visitors had possession, the latter did indeed drop back into the rear guard. It was with Braga on that flank, something of a dangerous strategy. Nancy, however, is clearly not risk-averse. When this wide man tracked back and dispossessed his opposite number in the 6th minute, it looked like the bold experiment was going to work. Yang was helpless to prevent Harry Millen from getting outside him and whipping across into his penalty box later in the first half. He would have been relieved when Tierney intercepted the delivery before it reached Lawrence Shanklin. He got booked soon after for pulling Millen back in the opposition half. Such a radical change was always going to lead to teething problems, but Nancy will not have any time in his new role to tinker. He has to get things right straight away, starting against Roma on Thursday night in the Europa League. Misfiring Maeda. It was not just at the back where the influence of Nancy could be seen. Going forward, Celtic attacked at pace and in numbers when they had the ball. The hosts, though, failed to trouble Alex Swallow, despite the pressure they applied in the final third. Dejan Maeda squandered 2 gilt-edged scoring chances. The Japanese winger, playing at striker once again, wore a bandage on his head due to the injury he suffered in the narrow midweek win over Dundee. But he did not look his usual self when he was teed up by first Tierney and then Tunicki. He slapped his first shot and then put his second attempt past the post. Celtic have lacked composure and ingenuity up front at times this term, and their efforts in the crucial area this afternoon once again were missing a certain ruthlessness. The absence of a specialist centre forward is unquestionably an issue for them, but Nancy clearly has work to do to restore a much-needed cutting edge to his side's play. Far too often his charges, decision-making or final ball is poor. Hearts class. Shanklin and his teammates saw their commanding 8-point lead at the top of the league table cancelled out by a wretched run of 1 win in 6 matches ahead of this encounter. The loss of Benny Beningame, a calming presence in the middle of the park, has been keenly felt. But McGuinness's men showed they deserved to be considered serious title contenders today. They contained their opponents well for long periods and made no mistake when they got their chance 2 minutes from half-time. Braga was too powerful for McGregor and gave Kasper Schmeichel no chance. The Celtic players looked to assistant referee Ross McLeod for a raised flag and protested to referee Don Robertson that Cammy Devlin had been in an offside position when he headed the ball in the build-up. But VAR official Greg Aiken watched the replay over at Clydesdale House and spotted that Arnie Ingalls had played his fellow midfielder on. The defending champions still have a game in hand to play and can draw level with the leaders if they win it. but Hearts will take huge encouragement from how they performed in this fiercely contested game. The margin of victory could have been even greater. Shanklin forced a fine fingertip save from Schmeichel in the second half before McEntee doubled the Tynecastle side lead when he was gifted a free header at a Millen corner. Swallow save. Swallow killed off Celtic's slim chances of salvaging a result when he produced a superb save from Engel's header at the death. Rio Hatate pounced on the rebound and hit the crossbar. Tierney fired in a consolation goal in injury time, but it would have been an injustice if the capital side had been denied the triumph. Craig Gordon watched from the bench and was delighted with the outcome, but the Scotland keeper is not reclaiming his place anytime soon if the German keeps up his current form. He has a decision to make in January. He needs game time ahead of the World Cup. Fan fury. The travelling supporters loved every moment of this and were not shy about rubbing their rivals' noses in their misery. They chanted, "This is a library," after Braga had broken the deadlock and silenced the home fans, and belted out, "You're getting sacked" in the morning when McEntee scored. Celtic's followers made their displeasure with their hierarchy obvious before kick-off, when they unfurled anti-board banners around the ground and were angry boos and jeers at the final whistle. Many of the number had headed for the exits long before that. Their mood is unlikely to lighten unless there is dramatic improvement in the weeks ahead. That article was by Matthew Lindsay. From the Herald, Monday, 8th of December 2025, Sports section. Monday's briefing. Michael Owen criticises Mohamed Salah for Liverpool outburst, by PA News Agency. The weekend's Premier League fallout has been dominated by Mohamed Salah's outburst in the wake of Liverpool's frustrating draw with Leeds at Ellen Road on Saturday night. Salah has come in for some criticism, notably from former Reds great Michael Owen, for intimating he has no relationship with head coach Arne Slot, and that next week's game against Brighton could be his last at Anfield. Elsewhere, Ryan Sherrick's flamboyance is hitting the headlines for Manchester City, while Hearts rebounded from stuttering form to score a stunning win at William Hill Premiership title rivals Celtic. Owen takes issue with Salah outburst. Former Liverpool striker Michael Owen said Mohamed Salah should not air his frustrations following his explosive outburst at Ellen Road. Salah was named as a substitute for the third successive match in Saturday's thrilling 3-3 draw against Leeds, and claimed in a post-match interview that he had been thrown under the bus and had no relationship with boss Arne Slot. The Egypt star also claimed next week's match against Brighton could be his last game at Anfield. While Owen said he sympathised with Salah, who has established himself as one of Liverpool's greatest ever players since joining from Roma in 2017, he said he should not have laid bare his feelings in public. Owen posted on X, "Oh no, Mo Salah, I can imagine how you feel. You've carried this team for a long time and won everything there is to win. But this is a team game and you simply can't publicly say what you've said." Dalot urges United teammates to become more obsessed. Diogo Dalot says Manchester United's players need to become more obsessed about representing their club and leading it to success. Ruben Amorim's Red Devils look to have put a wretched 2024-25 season and stumbling start to this campaign behind them during a promising 5-match unbeaten run. But boos have crept back in during recent games, and as United prepare to head to rock-bottom Wolves on Monday night, long-serving wing-back Dalot emphasised he was frustrated on a number of levels. "I think we've shown this season that we can be a very good team, and we can beat anybody," said Dalot. "Then it's something that we need to get into ourselves. I think we need to become a bit more obsessed about playing for this club, winning games and winning trophies for this club, but it's a process." Homework pays off for Hearts boss McInnes. Hearts head coach Derek McInnes revealed how homework helped his side wreck Wilfried Nancy's first game as Celtic head coach at Parkhead. The visitors restored their 3-point lead at the top of the table through goals from Claudio Braga and Oisín McEntee, before Kieran Tierney's stoppage time reply for Celtic came too late. Nancy had come in from MLS to replace interim boss Martin O'Neill last week, and McInnes said, "We have studied the last 2 or 3 days, watching a lot of Columbus Crew and what they want to do and expect from their players. We felt well prepared for that, and it meant we needed to fill the middle of the pitch with bodies. Celtic have got a lot of good players in that central area, so we needed to make sure we were nice and solid throughout that part of it." Chekri revels in city freedom. Rayon Chekri has described himself as a free soul, with a duty to make sure fans are happy after producing a moment of magic in Manchester City's comfortable victory over Sunderland on Saturday. The French playmaker capped the superb performance by creating City's third goal in a 3-0 win at the Etihad Stadium on Saturday with an improvised and eye-catching Rabona cross. It was the 22-year-old's best display since joining the club from Lyon in the summer, and he hopes there's plenty more to come. "All the time I played like a free soul, and because it's my life," he said. "I want to take pleasure, I want to give pleasure to the fans, and today I'm very happy." What's on today? For all their recent improvement, Ruben Amorim knows his Manchester United side can ill afford another setback when they travel to Molineux to face rock-bottom Wolves on Monday. Boos resurfaced after last week's frustrating draw with West Ham at Old Trafford, and his position is sure to come up for discussion again if United fail to do a job on their hosts, who've shown little discernible improvement under new boss Rob Edwards and are still searching for their first top-flight win of the season. That article was by PA News Agency Online. From the Herald, Monday, 8th of December 2025, Sports section. Pundit defends Celtic manager Wilfred Nancy after defeat. By Ryan McGinley, sports writer. James McFadden has backed the decision to allow Wilfred Nancy to take charge of Celtic against Hearts, insisting that the timing was always going to be difficult. The 48-year-old's first match as manager ended in a 2-1 defeat to Hearts at Celtic Park, a result that moved the Edinburgh side 3 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership table, thanks to goals from Claudio Braga and Oisin McEntee. Despite a late goal from Kieran Tierney in injury time, the hosts could not fully mount a comeback against Derek McInnes' side, who have won both games against the champions this season. However, McFadden gave a more holistic view on proceedings, with the ex-Scotland international believing that this was a tough game, regardless of who was in charge of Celtic. "I think that this is a game because Hearts have shown this season that had Martin O'Neill been in charge, it was still a game Celtic could have lost," he said. "And if Celtic lost the game, they would have said, well, why are you waiting to get a new manager who's ready to come in? The timing was always going to be difficult. So the biggest issue was always going to be, it was clear that Wilfred Nancy wants to play a back three, and it was clear that he was going to put that in place as soon as he could. Nancy will not have to wait long to get another taste of Celtic Park, with his new side facing off against Roma in Glasgow on Thursday night. The Europa League tie will be Nancy's first European game as manager of the club, and with both of his previous managerial stints occurring in North America with Montreal CF and Columbus Crew respectively. This article was by Ryan McGinley.
From Herald Scotland, 4th of December 2025, from the STEM section of the business section. Drone technology used to seed over 2 million trees at reservoir. Article by Craig Williams. A groundbreaking woodland creation project in the Scottish Borders has seen advanced drone technology deployed to seed over 2 million native trees across inaccessible upland areas. For the first time in the UK, heavy lift drones have been licensed to operate to beyond the line of sight while dispersing pelleted tree seeds in remote areas in the hills surrounding Tala Reservoir as part of a Scottish water project to help protect water quality at the site. Forming part of an envisaged 80-hectare woodland creation scheme on land surrounding the reservoir, the first drone seeding phase focused on a 20-hectare area, where the publicly owned utility company hopes to enrich existing woodland across the upper slopes of the catchment. Working with delivery partner Bell Ingram and stakeholders, proposals for the Tallawater Woods project could additionally see thousands of native broadleaves such as aspen, rowan, oak, alder and downy birch planted at the site towards the southeastern end of the reservoir, as well as establishing montane woodland in the higher altitude areas of the site. The aim is to help stabilise the soil surrounding the reservoir so that less organic matter is washed into the water during periods of extreme rainfall, which are increasing in frequency due to climate change. This will make the treatment process simpler and less energy intensive. Woodland Creation Programmes Manager at Scottish Water, Stephen Garbett, said, "This is a completely innovative approach to woodland creations, and we are really excited to be working with Bell Ingram and Auto Spray Systems to make use of this cutting-edge technology at Talla Reservoir. The nature of the landscape here means that traditional methods of tree planting would be extremely difficult and time-consuming to carry out, so to be able to harness this drone technology to effectively open up areas of the site like this is great. We are looking forward to seeing the results now that the first phase of drone seeding has been completed." Climate Action Secretary Gillian Martin said, "Our forests and woodland are a natural powerhouse and one of the most important resources we have to tackle the climate and nature emergencies. I welcome this initiative from Scottish Water, which will help to create new woodland, helping to increase local biodiversity while creating a natural way to reduce flooding in the area." Sam Guthrie, Forest Manager at Bell Ingram, said, "This pioneering project involves planting 2.1 million native tree seeds using novel drone and seed pelletisation technology, supporting Scottish Water's net zero ambitions and woodland creation goals. We are proud to deliver Scotland's first drone-sown upland native woodland with approval to operate a drone beyond visual line of sight, combining cutting-edge innovation with best practice forestry and strong environmental stewardship. Through projects like Tallawater Woods, the team is setting new standards for sustainable woodland creation, maximising outcomes for both climate and client." Leading drone company Auto Spray Systems carried out the work. CEO Rob Pearson said, "We at Auto Spray Systems are excited and proud to be delivering this project with Scottish Water. It's a pioneering operation, harnessing drone technology to sow 2.1 million native seeds on challenging terrain, a significant step forward for the UK forestry sector. We hope the woodland will be a powerful demonstration of how innovation and technology can be harnessed to support conservation and environmental projects." The Talla project builds on the back of other local initiatives, such as Talla and Game Shop to the south of the reservoir, owned by the Borders Forest Trust, helping to link up habitats and create wildlife corridors as part of the Wild Heart Expansion Project, which has significant benefits for biodiversity. A total of 55 hectares of the scheme could be made up of montane woodland, making it one of the largest montane schemes in the southern uplands. And that article was written by Craig Williams.
From the Herald Scotland, Tuesday the 9th of December 2025, news breaking. Data shows SNP fails to deliver on teacher numbers promises. Article written by James McInerney. The Scottish Government has failed to hit any of its promises regarding teacher numbers in Scotland, according to the latest official figures. The annual census of teachers across Scottish schools shows that the latest total stands at 53,475. Although this is a small increase in the figures from 2024, it falls significantly short of the number of specific pledges offered by the Scottish Government and leaves a key policy commitment in tatters. The government had various promises to restore teacher numbers to the 2023 levels, to cut contact time of teachers by 90 minutes per week, which requires additional staff, and to increase overall teacher numbers by 3,500 over the course of the current Parliament. Today's release confirms that none of these pledges have been met. With respect to teacher numbers, a Scottish Government spokesperson said, "The rise in teacher numbers reflects our investment in the workforce, which means the Scottish continues to have the lowest pupils per ratio and best paid teachers in the UK. We recognise that there is more work needed to return to these numbers in their 2023 levels, and we will continue to work with the councils towards this." More to follow. Article written by James McInerney, read by Helen Classy. From the Herald, Scotland, Tuesday the 9th of December 2025. News exclusive. Fish and chip shop in historic Scottish village up for sale. Article written by Brian Donnelly. A popular fish and chip shop has been brought to the market. The premises has a monopoly trading position in a historic Scottish village. Cornerstone Business Agents is handling the leasehold sale of Roswell Friar in Midlothian village of Roswell. The agent said, "Our clients have owned and operated the Roswell Friar for 3.5 years, during which time they have built up an excellent reputation locally. They have reluctantly placed the business on the market for personal reasons and will leave behind a well-equipped and profitable business. The shop has been a finalist in several categories over the years in the Scottish Fish and Chip Awards, with rave reviews from judges to go with excellent online reviews. There is a serious potential to expand on the limited hours and the 5-day trading that the current owners offer. The business is run by the 2 owners along with 2 part-time staff and 2 drivers." The agent also said the sale of Roswell Friar is a wonderful opportunity for a hands-on operator looking to take on a profitable business with a great reputation. The business is situated in Carnethy Street in the centre of Midlothian village of Roswell. A former mining village, Roswell is located about 10 miles south of Edinburgh city centre and is close to the surrounding Midlothian towns of Pennycook, Loanhead, Dalkeith, Bonnyrigg and Gorebridge. There has been continued residential development in Roswell over the last 20 years, where the number of homes has more than doubled in the area. This expansion is still going on. The Roswell Friar offers a wide and varied menu with all the usual fried food favourites, whilst also offering pizzas, kebabs, burgers, wraps and pastas. They have their own app as well as offering deliveries through the usual platforms. The leasehold is offered at a guide price of £69,500 and an annual rent of £12,342. Article written by Brian Donnelly, read by Helen Classy. From the Herald, Scotland, Tuesday the 9th of December 2025. News exclusive. Lord Advocate warns of disruption after Rape Shield ruling. Article written by Kathleen Nutt. The Lord Advocate is warning of disruption in the justice system as she gave a detailed assessment of the impact a landmark ruling by the Supreme Court will have on victims, defendants and lawyers in sex offence trials as the judgment is implemented in Scotland. Dorothy Bain, KC, set out her views in a letter to the convener of the Holyrood's Criminal Justice Committee, the SNP MSP, Audrey Nicholl, after the UK's highest court found the way legislation relating to what evidence can be presented in proceedings was being interpreted was putting the accused right in the fair trial at risk. The unanimous ruling handed down by Lord Reid, President of the Supreme Court, last month, found that laws designed to protect victims in court were being applied in a way that was too restrictive. It said the approach, which has been taken since 2013, risked breaching Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights. The accused writes to a fair trial by not allowing the defendant to present evidence that could properly challenge the prosecutor's case. Known as Rape Shield Law, Section 274 and 275 of the Criminal Procedure Scotland Act 1995 are designed to protect complainers in the sexual offence trials by regulating and often excluding evidence of their sexual history or character. Section 274 establishes the general rule that such evidence is inadmissible, while the Section 275 allows for exceptions in specific circumstances. But for a Section 275 application to succeed, defence lawyers must demonstrate when they make the application that not just the evidence is relevant, but that its relevance outweighs the intrusion it represents into the privacy and dignity of the complainer. Miss Bain told Miss Nicholl that Scottish courts are now under a duty to take more flexible and nuanced approach to applications under the Section 275, including those relating to sexual history evidence, bad character evidence and any other evidence bearing in the complainant's credibility and reliability. She stated that fairness may sometimes require the admission of intrusive evidence, as she went on to highlight the consequences of the ruling. On the impact on existing and future cases, she said there would be disruption with current and future cases in the system facing delays as prosecution lawyers receive new training and defence lawyers submit applications for evidence that should be heard that may previously have been disallowed. Article written by Kathleen Nutt, read by Helen Classy. From the Herald Scotland, Tuesday the 9th of December 2025, News. Plan for 1,000 new homes at former City Factory site backed. Article written by Brian Donnelly. Plans for almost 1,000 new homes and a hotel in a Scottish city has been recommended for approval. The proposals for a huge former factory site near the country's busiest airport were described as representing a significant investment. The Herald earlier revealed that Summit's Capital has submitted a planning application for a residential-led mixed-use development at Edinburgh Gateway, the former site of Secha packaging facility. The development said it provides a unique opportunity to regenerate the former industrial location on Turnhouse Road. The application has now been recommended for approval and will be considered by the councillors next week. The firm said the flagship Vibrant New Neighbourhood aims to deliver a mix of uses. This includes the delivery of more than 950 homes, including 35% affordable homes, plus a new hotel with over 170 bedrooms. The housing proposed will include tenure blind affordable housing, addressing the city's well-published housing emergency, and including the provision of accessible family homes and build-to-rent accommodation. BTR sees homes built specifically for rent rather than sale. Papers to go before councillors stated it is recommended that the application be granted. The proposal delivers 957 new homes on an allocated housing site as part of a mixed-use development with a hotel and commercial uses and is highly acceptable in principle. This proposal will form part of a emerging area in West Edinburgh as envisaged in the development plan. The paper continues. The former factory facility is required to be demolished to allow development of the proposal, however, use of brownfield site is supported by the plan. Affordable housing of 35% is proposed on site as required by policy, and a good mix of housing in a mixture of flat sizes from studios to 3 bedrooms, including 20% for families, is provided. The site next to Edinburgh Airport became available after the Spain-based paper and cardboard company Secha relocated to a purpose-built facility in Livingston. Article written by Brian Donnelly, read by Helen Classy. From the Herald Scotland. Tuesday the 9th of December 2025. News. Police and Coast Guard search for missing Dundee man Alan Woodcock. Article written by Jodie Harrison. A multi-agency search has been launched to find a pensioner who has gone missing from Dundee. Police and HM Coast Guard Search and Rescue in Tayside say they are concerned for Alan Woodcock, 76, who went missing on Monday. Alan was last seen around mid-morning in the Osborne Place area of the city. Officers believe he may have travelled towards Arbroath, possibly via Ballybudden, Barry and Carnoustie. He is described as being 5'9" tall, slim build and with grey thinning hair and wearing glasses. He is likely to be dressed in a grey woolen hat, a green barber-style jacket, blue jeans and grey trainers. Inspector Ahmad from Lochee Police Station said, "We, along with Alan's family, are concerned for his well-being and are seeking the public's assistance to check their gardens, garages and sheds as Alan may have taken shelter within. I would also ask anyone who may have seen Alan in Dundee, Carnoustie or Arbroath since mid-morning on Monday to contact the police as a matter of urgency. Please quote the incident number 3104 of Monday the 8th of December 2025. I would also appeal directly to Alan. If you are reading this message, please contact your family, approach any police officer or phone the officers so we can assure that you are safe and well." Article written by Jodie Harrison, read by Helen Classy. From the Herald Scotland, Tuesday the 9th of December 2025, news. Storm Bram, bad weather disrupts Calmac ferry services across Scotland. Article written by Jodie Harrison. Ferry services across Scotland have been hit by widespread disruption as Storm Bram brings strong winds and adverse sea conditions. A number of sailings have been cancelled or suspended, with the timetable across Scotland disrupted ahead of the bad weather. Passengers are strongly advised to check ahead with major routes in doubt due to the incoming storm. The Met Office has issued an amber weather warning for the Western Isles and North West Scotland, with winds of up to 90 miles per hour predicted. The alert is due to come into force around 4 p.m. and last until Wednesday. However, Calmac is already reacting to the forecast with a raft of suspensions and cancellations. In the Clyde area, the Guruk Dunoon service has been partially suspended, the MV Alicat halting operations until at least 1300 hours, when a review will take place. MV Argyll Flyer continues to operate to the timetable. The Weems Bay Rothesay service remains highly vulnerable to disruption or cancellation at short notice because of the forecast strong winds. There is also an increased likelihood that sailings may divert to Guruk. Further north, the Ullapool-Stornoway route has been multiple cancellations, including departures from Ullapool at 10:30 and 17:30 and from Stornoway at 1400 hours. Similarly, on the Oog-Tarbert route, scheduled sailings from 11:50 from Tarbert and 18:50 from Oog have been cancelled. The Oog-Lochmaddy service is also affected, with the 1400 hours departure from Oog to 1610 from Lochmaddy called off. On the west coast, all sailings between Troon and Brodick have been cancelled due to strong winds associated with Storm Bram. Meanwhile, Tobermory to Kilcoen route remains at risk of disruption or cancellation, particularly for afternoon sailings because of the adverse weather and the sea swell. On the Largs Cumbria route, sailings have been suspended due to crew availability, with operators advising that an update will be provided as soon as possible. Article written by Jodie Harrison, read by Helen Classy.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Tune Review and to tell your friends about our service.